Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 in 98.1 FM. Well, we're only about, 7 weeks away from our 8-year anniversary. All right. So, the Ask Brien show has been on for nearly 8 years. We are a business show. We try to help people learn something about business, either by bringing on a person that has either created a company and we can see how they did it from A to Z and how they were able to scale their business, or on a specific subject, and sometimes both. But Ask Brien is spelled ASKBRIEN, and a lot of times people say, I don't understand why it's Brien, and on top of that, if I'm spelling Brien, I have friends named Brien, it's all BRYAN or BRIAN. Why you're spelling it with an E. And we have a lot of reasons why we spell Brien with an E, but we have a resident expert in E's. In fact, she actually has a PhD, and her name is Traci.
I have a PhD in E's. I don't even know that. I don't think that exists. But you are welcome to call me Dr. Traci anytime you want. Okay. Well, we are going to kick it off, as we always do every week, with a very much a expression of gratitude to our engineer, Jen, our primary E.
Thank you. Primary E. Okay, that's a good title.
Yeah, because without you, primary E, PhD, tomato. But yes, because without you, Jen, we really don't even want to know what could happen, and really, please don't ever make us figure that out. So there's that. But it's really all about the education and the core component of getting educated on this show is usually not Peter and me. It's usually our experts. Come on, let's just be honest, right? And we have yet another fabulous expert today. And, people will say, okay, well, what qualifies an expert? Well, in traditional expert analysis, it would be that you would work a minimum of 10,000 hours in your respective field or business niche category. And if you were to do that on average, 40 or so weeks a year, that would take about 5 years. But oh my goodness, first of all, we know that no startup entrepreneur is at all probably even getting close to 40 hours a week. They're probably doing more like 50 or 60. So they could easily get up to that 10,000 hour mark in like 3 years. But again, most of our experts are really just way more into their area of expertise than the 10,000 hours. And I know that's true for today as well. And so that makes my dog and myself very enthusiastic about the Ask Brien show. And what do you think about that?
And I am so excited!
And between you and my dog, my eardrums are now buzzing.
Another E.
I just want to say for the record today, every interview that I've done today, and this is not my first one, my dog has decided to join me. So he has been very vocal today. So thank you, Finn, for your appearance. And speaking of appearance, I have a lot of empathy for our guest because she's been hanging out, listening to us talk about all of this. And so I'm pretty excited as well to bring her on. And Peter, what do you think about that?
What is empathy?
Exactly. So yet another reason why we should just move on.
But move on. I mean, there's an E at the end of move, right? So,
yeah.
Well, it also there are E's for education because we try to educate people. We are the Sesame Street of business. Okay, that's my new line.
Yeah. Well, you can claim the Sesame Street part. That's fine if you want to.
And we already went over. We have Big Bird, Ernie, and Bert, and all that stuff, right? So you got that going on. And then, of course, you need to be experienced. But, we know that Tracy's favorite line here is from the movie Grease and Olivia Newton-John. And we say,
exactly.
Grease lightning
And that
is what? What is grease lightning?
it's electrifying, and so are we.
Oh. All right. So we have a guest. Believe it or not, we do have a guest. Hopefully, she didn't say, "I don't know why I'm here, and I don't know what I'm doing here," and I'll have to take on Tracy
Not at
later
all.
on. But if she's still around,
Of course I am, and I'm excited to be here.
oh, so there's two excited people because I was excited. I was screaming. All right, like Sam Kinison from The Screamer. Getting back to the real show here, we got a really good show. Our guest, her name is Patricia. Patricia, why don't you introduce yourself? Give us a little background. I'm not going to go into your company yet. I want to go into your background prior to starting your company, and then from there on, we'll discuss your company and your business and what you're currently doing. But people like to know who you are first and who you were before you started your company. So if you can give a little background on that, on your business background.
Yes, absolutely. I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I started my professional career in companies, powerhouses, marketing powerhouses like Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola. I always knew I wanted to be in marketing. Since I was a little girl, I loved advertising and communication, so I knew I wanted to go in that direction. And of course, Procter & Gamble, which was my first job, was like the top company in my mind, and I was very, very fortunate to start my career there. And that gave me a very solid foundation that included research. And that's something that I emphasize today as well. It's so important to do research in everything that we do. So after Procter & Gamble, I worked at Coca-Cola. I handled all their brands except for Coke in Mexico and Latin America. And I had a lot of exposure to international businesses. And that gave me also the opportunity to see how different countries and different cultures related to brands in different ways according to who they were. And of course, research continued to be a very important foundation for me. But Coca-Cola is much more focused on communication and marketing and positioning and feelings and all of that. So that was a very important part of my professional career as well. And then I moved on to BBVA, which is one of the largest banks in the world, and I was managing their marketing as well, and which gave me all the financial mindset and everything that had to do with strategy. And so these three companies, I would say, were my foundation for everything that I did. And then I moved to the U.S. with my ex-husband now, who is American, and I worked for consulting companies and others because we were moving from one place to another because of his job. And I had the opportunity to be exposed then to different sectors and different mindsets of companies in a totally different culture, although I had worked with the U.S. very closely as well. And I got to see that the same principles applied to different industries in more or less the same way. And actually the fact that I was not an expert in each one of the industries and fields gave me an advantage because for me to communicate well with the audience, usually I had to translate certain situations. For instance, for a tech company, I had to translate it to where people understood what they were doing or using. So me not being an expert in technology would give me that advantage because I knew the foundations, but I didn't understand the product. I had to understand the product to be able to communicate it correctly to the agencies, et cetera. So that's in a nutshell my background, Peter.
Wow, that was very impressive. Now, you have this current company, I believe it's called, I may mispronounce it, so I'm just going to spell it out, Rima Strategy.
Rima, yes.
Rima Strategy. And so when did you start that company, and what is that company all about?
Well, I started another company called Mojo Communications and Marketing prior to this one. And so this is a relaunch of my other company, but I started probably 15 years ago. And the way Mojo, my older company, started, it's because it was mostly focused on marketing. But then I understood that, like the clients that I was working with, especially the startups or smaller organizations, didn't have a strategy. And the way I see marketing and in general success in marketing is through meeting goals, quantitative goals that are achieved with a strategy, with a solid strategy. But most of these organizations, because as you all know, probably all your listeners have been there, I have been there myself, we just wing it at the beginning, right? It's like we have an idea, this is great, we get funding or something, and then we start doing things. But sometimes experts are not experts in a field, are not experts in marketing or communication or funding or different or even strategy. So because of my background in companies like Procter & Gamble, that is very strategic and very focused on quantitative measures, then I would ask, what is our goal? What do we have to reach, right? Because if not, marketing can become a very expensive trial and error department. And I noticed that most of my clients didn't have a very solid strategy. They were winging it, which is very normal, nothing to be ashamed of if you're there. And so I started to work with the CEOs developing the strategy. And that opened my eyes to other areas as well. For instance, one of the areas that I love to work with is like with a chief financial officer, because then we can tandem together to reach certain goals. So that's when I started, and that's how it transmuted into Rima, because I ended up doing more strategy than only marketing.
I don't want to get into the company that you had before, but so what was the emphasis of why you switched from the first company to this company and you pivoted?
It is because it was not only marketing. I expanded into strategy, and the other one was more marketing only, communication and advertising.
And who are you going to? Because I know you mentioned a whole bunch of big companies. I mean, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble. You are now focused on small businesses or medium-sized businesses or big businesses. Who's your focus on currently?
I focus mainly on smaller companies. Smaller to medium companies that usually don't have the funding to get a senior strategist or marketing. And so I work as a fractional chief marketing officer and strategist. And that has actually evolved again into innovation because of today's current environment.
And for what was your biggest challenge in starting this company?
Oh my gosh, my biggest challenge was to dare. Just to do it. Because at the beginning, even though I had ideas and I kind of knew I had the experience, just standing up on my own was difficult. So I have a background also in mindfulness and meditation, and that helped me a lot to kind of be centered and always be focused on what I wanted to do and offer as a service, and not only rely on how I felt that day.
And for Rima Strategy, first, where are you getting your clients from typically?
Usually it's through word of mouth. Old clients that recommend me with other clients, or they move to other companies and they recommend me to those companies.
And do you have like a typical package or program that you offer for new clients? In other words, or is it just custom made based on the customer's needs?
Clients vary so much. We see so many different needs that at the beginning, I usually go into the discovery period with a client, and that means working on finding what they need, because usually what they think they need and what they really need might be different. Sometimes it's simpler than what they think, and sometimes it's more complex. So that discovery period, it's a very good way of getting to know each other and getting to find out where we want to go and what they have already.
So how do you determine what they need? I mean, it sounds like sometimes they'll know, but sometimes they won't. So how do you figure that out? I mean, it's like, I'm selling widgets, right? I'm the biggest widget maker in Southern California. How do you know what they need? Is it like you're determining if they need more sales, more marketing? What kind of needs are you looking for?
Well, I started asking about their strategy. If they have a strategic plan, or what's the vision of the founder, for instance. Depending on the size of the company, I talk to different departments. They usually, sometimes what I find is that different departments have different needs, or they think they need to go in different directions. And my role is to work with a senior level executives, or if they don't have senior level executives, which is with teams, to get to that vision of the founder. So after having done this for many years, I can detect the gaps. Of course, I have a methodology. I have questions that I ask for documentations, what they have done before, what has worked, what has not worked. Some are brand new. They don't have experience. Some do. Some, for instance, might need a bigger strategy and an agency that can deliver campaigns, etc. So it depends, and that's why it's called the discovery period, because even though I have specific questions and formats that I fill out to give at the end, like an assessment to the client, it varies tremendously on what stage they're in or where they want to go.
So let's go to that area, right? So what's the smallest size company? Was it a one-man or one-woman show? And I imagine, and what was the biggest company size-wise that you've worked with, not prior to this, but after you've started this business on Rima?
I have worked with companies as small as 5 people, but one of the important things is that they need to be funded. And I have a good friend. She's a CFO that gave me one other requirement, and that is that the leader of the organization needs to be somehow coachable, and that means listen to some ideas. Not that they would do anything that I say blindly, of course, but that they're willing to work in with this mentality of team mentality. So I have worked with companies as small as 5, and then I have worked with others that are 50 to 100 employees.
And how many people on your team?
Well, I am the CEO of the company, and then I have design teams, I have agencies, but again, usually we contract the teams that will adapt very well to the client. Not only people that are in my staff, but also people that are like contractors. And so we have a lot of we work with incredible people like programmers and designers and cultural experts, PR companies, etc., that are part of my team, quote unquote.
And how do you select people for your team? I mean, in other words, so you're working with big clients that are funded, okay, and they want to expect the best results, and you're going to deliver the best results. But to me, it's always been, how do you find these great people? Because if you don't have a great designer and a great creative person, great this and great that is your business. To me. And so how do you find these people?
Yes, I don't have an agency like an advertising agency or a creative agency. I do have designers in my staff and everything, but not a whole staffed agency. What happens, Brien, is, and let me give you an example, for instance, and I think this is very important to understand for entrepreneurs, that we are so different. The way we as individuals have something to offer to society and to business is very unique. And for instance, I had a client, Traci actually knows him. he's a very creative CEO, a very well, creative is the word I would say. Just like he spits up ideas, right? And he loves music and all the actually he's all.
Hello?
And the people that worked for the agency and designers, etc., had to meet that personality, because then Traci also knows another client of mine, an organization that was like, it's a membership organization in Georgia as well, but very traditional. They would have died with that agency or that creative team because they would have found them totally out of the box, crazy to deal with. And so we found a team of creative people and designers that were more traditional, and they could understand in a more logical way what the client needed. So and that's how we build those teams. That's part of my job, actually. Some of them have started working for the companies, and they stay there because we make teams. We make things work. The objective for me when I'm working with a client is for them to be successful.
Well, we're going to have to take a quick break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And what they say about this radio show, like no other station in the world. You are like no other station in the world. A bunch of characters. All right.
You leading the charge.
Every radio station has a lot of characters. Ours is just it's even more special, even more electrifying. Oh goodness! Okay,
I'm going to turn it over.
Back.
I'm going to turn it over to my co-host because she always likes to pivot because she thinks she's a basketball player. So go ahead.
Oh my God, I'm the most uncoordinated person on the planet. I do not think I'm a basketball player. I think I'm a strategist, and strategists pivot. So I am a whatever. Let's get to the point. Okay, so what I was thinking as you were talking, and I loved what you were saying before, Patty, about the different energies and associated with the different types of teams and the different, just basically types of businesses and how that needs to align. And that, and also in conjunction with what you mentioned at the very beginning of the show about how important research and data are. So I think, that means a lot of different things to different people. But one thing it means to most everyone is that research and data is expensive. And I know like the bigger companies, the Frito-Lays, the Procter & Gamble's, the Coca-Colas of the world, like they have budgets set aside just for R&D. And the more independent business owner, the small to medium-sized business, like they often, in my personal experience in both being a business owner and working with thousands of entrepreneurs in the consulting role, is that the R&D side of things often gets, the corners are cut from the budget on that because you have payroll and power bills and other things. And so you can't necessarily invest in the research, but it is so important. How can you navigate that as a small business owner?
That's a great question, Traci. And it's true in a way. And in another way, with technology today, we can do so much research at a very low cost. For instance, I think that you're right. And not only money is a challenge for small organizations. It's also time. They're spending money. They have to move fast, and stopping to analyze what's going on in the market sometimes seems like it's too stressful and too many resources that usually smaller organizations don't have to go there. But it's not the case today because, first of all, you have all the secondary research studies out there. We could drown on information today. And there's plenty of secondary research just by not only Googling, but right now you have artificial intelligence that helps you, like, for instance, ChatGPT, of course, everybody knows about that, but there's Claude and Perplexity that uses you can give them questions and they will go and do the research for you and come back with answers. And of course, it's not infallible. We always have to be checking. but there's tons of secondary information. Perplexity, for instance, gives you the sources of the information, and you can say, no, I don't like that source. Forget about that. Give me only academic sources, and they would go into academic libraries and give you information of what's going on, or articles of what's going on in certain industry. So that is one way that you can get information without spending a lot of time or resources. Another way right now that we have that we can achieve getting information from what's actually happening, and not only theoretical information, but also information about how people are receiving your offers, is through social media. Social media, if you have someone that is posting, for instance, different concepts, let's say that you have an idea and you want to see what's the best way to communicate it. Before, you would have to get an agency and develop, the questionnaire and go out and do things, or call people or text people. Now you can just put it out there, literally through some social media channels, and then you will see how much traction they get, what people like, what people don't. That's how I think it's really great to use those metrics to monitor as research. It is not how people use them, though. Sometimes what people see, like let's say it's a small organization and they use social media and they say, oh, we have this many likes or we have this many shares. But that has been proven to not be a good reference for success. But instead, if you look at metrics and put different offerings there, for instance, out there, you can see what comes back, the comments, et cetera, and you can use those. You can also mine data from other competition or from other organizations that do more or less what you do, or that are following conversations that you're interested in, and you can mine that data and you can put it in a program and get that information same day, fresh information at a very low cost.
I love what you just mentioned about the likes and the followers and being the connection to the metrics. And, as you know, when we've worked together with clients before in the podcasting space, there is such a difference between the download numbers being the vanity metrics, is what we often say, versus the actual ability for people to use their content, whether it's podcasting, video, social, all of the things, to actually convert to sales of their products and services to their actual bottom line. And I think, we are mutually probably frustrated with some of these conversations because it's not all about how many likes you get or how many followers you have. It's about what are you putting out there that can convert to positioning you as a thought leader, subject matter expertise, and selling your products and services, or having awareness around what it is that you do for your clients in the service-based businesses. And I just think it's a conversation that people are not having enough.
Absolutely, Tracy, I'm with you. Yes. And I was in a closed door meeting with other chief marketing officers from different organizations, large organizations, and one of the things that they were discussing is that exactly what you're saying, that we're using social media metrics wrong. And so we can continue this conversation because you and I can talk about that for hours, right?
Well, we can, but I do think it's important for people to really kind of sit with that as something to really think about, because that in a lot of ways, especially when you are a smaller business owner or a business owner, no matter what size really, but you're evaluating the success or failure of your campaign. And if the only metric that you're examining is how many likes you got, you're really missing the mark on what's possible for you to A/B test your message, your call to action, your content. So I know we're going to take a break for our sponsor, but I'm just really glad that you brought that forward for people to think about.
Well,
thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Tracy. And we're going to be taking a break to listen to our sponsor, Legal Steps.
And we want to say thank you to Legal Steps. It's LEGALSTEP. it's spelled with a Z.com. We're listening to Patty talk about strategy and how to help companies meet their goals and what's the best way to get around different obstacles. And it's making me think about what they do at Legal Steps. They kind of do the same thing. It's all about strategy, how to get you from A to B. So you're stuck at A. You've been wanting to start your own business for however long, and you just don't know how to get to B. They've got that strategy there for you already. It is so simple. Don't let legalese kind of confuse you. Don't let anything like that get in your way. They make it so cut and dry that you'll really be surprised at how quick and easy it is to really get ahead through the program at LegalSteps.com. You can register a trademark, form an S corporation, or form an LLC. I took one of these courses a little while ago just to kind of see what it was about, and I was able to do it in under 2 hours. And I loved that I can work at my own pace. I was able to sit at the kitchen table with my cup of coffee and just kind of get my work done. Something came up, I could pause it, I could rewind it, take notes. And I really loved that, there was a couple of times where I was like, what is this? What am I talking about? And so I was able to obviously pause it, like I said, but I could see what my legal expert was looking at, like a screen in screen. And that was so helpful because then I knew, okay, yes, you're answering these questions the right way. If you get to the point where you're totally confused, they'll just do it for you. And so these experts, by the way, experts with over 30 years experience, I think 32 years, 33 years and counting. And counting. And so obviously you're in good hands. You've got people who know what they're doing. And the courses, by the way, super affordable. Obviously everybody is concerned about, how to stretch that dollar. The courses are all under $150. So don't let something like that get in your way of starting your dream, starting your business that you've always wanted to do. LegalSteps.com, LegalStepz.com.
Well, thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Thank you to our sponsor, Legal Steps. All right, we're back. Traci?
You just cracked me up. I don't know what to say.
Well,
there's nothing funny about Legal Steps, but somehow you make me laugh about it.
Well, Jerry Seinfeld and I have something in common. What can I say?
Okay, Patty. So I'm going to circle back to something that you mentioned and kind of pull that out of context to transition us into our next topic, which is about innovation. So you mentioned, and I think that was such a great point about how research and development has become so much more economical now because there are so many opportunities to be able to do research in a deeper dive and create content and all the kinds of things in terms of with the artificial intelligence. What does that mean for what's next in marketing trends and innovation for marketing strategies? And can you give us some of the inside behind the curtain scoop on how we should plan and what we should be looking for in terms of marketing industry trends?
Yes, and not only about marketing, Traci, strategy in general. I think we all see that right now. People are feeling like the rug was pulled out of their feet. Organizations are having to change very rapidly. I was talking to a chief technology officer. Maybe it's not the correct title, but something like that, cybersecurity officer or something of one of the major insurance companies in the U.S. And I was asking him, we were talking about artificial intelligence, and I said, what is the biggest challenge that you see right now for organizations of all sizes? And his answer was how fast humans can adapt to change. It's not about the technology. It's not about what is going on. It's about us. It's about us as humans. How can we adapt so fast? And that's why we see a lot of polarization, probably a lot of people trying to grasp to something that they know or a conversation or an idea that they have because it feels like change is happening too fast. And the areas that I see that happening right now for organizations of all sizes are demographics. Demographics are changing very rapidly. The young people, for instance, if you see in companies, for instance, older generations and younger generations sometimes have a hard time understanding each other because we were raised in different worlds almost. Sometimes I see that the younger cohort knows a lot more about something than the older ones, even though we have more seniority and we have other experiences that they don't have. You know, we complement each other more and more. I heard somebody saying that at this time, like, everybody needs to have a younger mentor and an older mentor, because we are living in almost divided worlds, right? In terms of technology or the way we see the world, it's very, very different. So demographics, and also, for instance, and you know, Traci, you and I have worked also on Latino markets. You know, the misconceptions that exist about that market, and it's 20% of the population that a lot of times is being left, it's money left on the table because organizations don't understand this kind of demographics, the largest minority in the U.S. So demographics is one of them. Of course, technology is one of them. Artificial intelligence, we are afraid mostly of it sometimes. Sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't use it. Sometimes we think we're optimizing it and we're not. And sometimes organizations have adopted technology that in 3 months it's obsolete. And employees and the people who use it, suppliers, you know, they get frustrated. It's like, oh no, not again, please. Do I have to adapt? We feel that with our iPhones, right? It's like, oh, do I have to learn something else all over again, you know, because we change them so fast. So not only hardware, but now software and the kind of technology is changing very, very rapidly. And the other one that we just saw with the elections and everything, it's just the decentralization of information and decentralization of communication, where before we used to see what's the news and get the information that we all were getting. And right now it's not the case. It's decentralized. And I can get a microphone like this podcast, right? I have a mic. I can say whatever I want and people can listen to whatever I have to say. And so the decentralization of information is very important. What you guys are doing with podcasts, it's amazing. It's a service to society, really, to bring expertise that is bringing organizations and entrepreneurs up. And we can do that in every sector, the decentralization. But people are afraid, oh, are they influencers? How are we going to do that? Are we being manipulated? Well, that's also true for some, right? But not for most. And those are the three challenges that I see people facing, and smaller organizations facing, when they have to adapt to change so rapidly.
And we're going to be taking a quick break. Listen to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And we're back. My co-host Traci is going to ask a couple questions more. Aren't you, or what?
Well, I think one of the most important questions I can ask is, how can people get more of you? This conversation was so dynamic and so fascinating, and I just want to go like vertically deep on all of those areas that you just talked about before the break but I know we don't have time today. So if someone would want to get in touch with you, connect with you, learn more about your services and what you do, Patty, what would be the best way for people to continue the conversation with you today?
Oh, wonderful. It's they can visit my website, rimastrategy.com, RIMA strategy.com. And they can also find me on LinkedIn as Patricia Pinckney, Rima Strategy.
That's so perfect. And people, if you're listening, I would definitely take advantage. Send that DM through LinkedIn and connect with Patty, because she is such a wealth of knowledge and could be so advantageous to you as you're navigating all of these changes and innovations in the business climate today. And if you want to go back and replay any of the things that we talked about today, and the live radio can't let you do that, but it can happen if you download and listen to our podcast. So search wherever you get your favorite podcast, and on the Ask Brien, the podcast. And of course, that's ASKBRIEN. And we're available on all the listening platforms wherever you find and search and listen to your favorite podcasts.
Well, thank you very much. We're back on the air, and we've got a big question. It's directed to our guest. We want to know about adapting to change. that's a very, very big factor, right? So how do companies adapt to change?
Well, that's the key right now, right, these days. And I think it's very important to not lose sight of the human-centered strategies and the human factor. You know, we talk about technology, demographics in big groups, or the changes in decentralization of information, et cetera, as concepts that exist out there. But at the end of the day, it's humans, it's us who are grasping that, adapting it. And it's one of the biggest human challenges, the adaptation. We usually tend to reject change. Even if it's good change, sometimes it's difficult. So it's very important that we include in our strategies that human factor. Actually, some people say that the future of online is offline, right? It's the literally these changes. And that's where I love to bring this human factor in terms, because as I mentioned before, I have been practicing meditation and mindfulness for decades, and that is bringing, it's amazing for the first time ever in my career, it's becoming crucial. And you don't have to meditate, you don't have to use mindfulness, but you have to use certain tools. And I'm working, for instance, with a group from MIT that is pointing out to that's doing a lot of research on innovation, and it's pointing out to that right now, that is the key factor to take advantage of or consider in your strategy. Listen profoundly to the people that are working with you, for you, your employees, your suppliers, and being in this present moment where it seems that the old is not working anymore, the new is arising, but we still don't see very clearly. And there's this transitioning moment that we're living right now that we need to be kind, even if it sounds a little corny, but kind to each other, and also incorporate all of this into the strategy. Numeric, objective strategies need to include the human factor.
Well, we only have about a minute left, so we can't go too much further, but let's stay on this change thing. So how does a company know it needs to change? You know, they can't, you know, they don't know, so how they're not going to change if they don't know they need to change. How are they going to figure out?
If they don't know, Brien, Peter, if they don't know, they're going to find out, because the old is not going to work anymore. You know, unless you are a store in this little town. But even then, you know, now we have Amazons. I mean, the change is, we all are being called to change, to evolve in a way or another, to incorporate different things. And most companies are aware they have to change. Maybe they are resisting the change, but I don't know one single company that doesn't need to change or that is not changing, even if they are not naming it that way.
Unfortunately, we don't really have much time left, so it's going to be a one-word answer, and you're not going to be able to give one answer. But the question is, change doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct. You may change for the wrong, correct? So it's not always just change. It's change for the better, right?
Absolutely. It's change for the better, but that is where the human factor comes in, right? If we are including our human, like where do we want to go, our objectives, our intentions, then change can go in one direction or another, and we will choose for sure.
Well, I'd rather not change, but unfortunately the time is up. So you've been listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM with our guest Patricia, Traci, my co-host, our engineer Jen, and myself. All right, thank you very much. That's a wrap. Over and out, the Ask Brien radio show, KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. That's fast.